I'm going to take a question from the audience and weave it into a question that I already showed one of the panelists. This is from Miles Mulrain. One of the people in the audience asked, is this story being taught in Orange County Public Schools? I did not know this story, and I had indicated to you that I wanted you to speak to the issues from the perspective of someone who deals a lot with the youth, with your community work. For people who were born in 1995 or thereabouts, or even subsequent to that, stories from the 1950s and 60s might feel like ancient history. And so, as someone who interacts regularly with young people, to what degree do you think stories of police abuse from back in the day have relevancy and legitimacy in the modern day? And should these stories be taught by the people in the community and or by the schools?
Yeah, thank you so much. And interesting because me, myself, it wasn't something that I was actually aware of, the Groveland 4, before I started even doing this type of work. I've heard about it along with things like the Ocoee Massacre that wasn't made aware to me also. And I think it's a real lack when it comes to school and the public school system, at least, teaching those type of things. Because normally in the school curriculum, you're not going to touch on more than the regular known figures like Martin Luther King or maybe Thurgood Marshall, but they're not going to talk about Groveland. They'll talk about his Supreme Court stay, but they won't talk about the cases that got him to that point. So I think with our generation, our younger generations that are coming up, it's very important that it's not just public school, but just, in the household. Because in the household, you get the unfiltered story that you might not get in school when you got Black History Month and they want to give you February, 28 days to kind of squeeze in all of the history. It's not possible. And I think that films like this, they're real groundbreaking because to the newer generation, everything is done in quick spurts. The attention span is not the same, and seeing the visual aid is way different than reading a story. I could go on Wikipedia and see that they were killed or shot, and I could be like, okay, I see what's going on. But when you see the pictures and seeing their bodies on top of each other, when you see the different court reports and all the stuff that took place, it's a whole different story. I think that when it comes to the younger generations, it's very important that we actually start teaching this because a lot of people don't know. This isn't something that I've been a champion for personally. This is a good opportunity for myself to learn more about it also being here. And things that we have exposed the youth to in the past, they're like shocked. When you tell them something happened, especially things that's going on that the senators referred to in the 70s, they're like, what? My mama was alive then. And, and a lot of times they don't realize what the older generations went through. And me, myself, when I see nowadays, it's still systemic things out there. There's still issues that take place. It's just a different delivery. One thing I noted in the film was how they said that it went from lynching a person publicly to doing it through the legal system. We still see that today. One of the things we fight for is second chances and a lot of the disenfranchised people who can't vote in the state of Florida. And it's not just with voting, it's with a lot of different issues that you can't do, but it's just a different delivery. I always think about how there are people who can't get a job or can't get housing and they can't do these certain things because of the 13th Amendment that states that they were, properties of the state. And that they were people who are now still properties of the state in theory, especially when you can't do things that everybody else could do. So it's interesting to see it. One thing I will tell the newer generations is we got no excuse to not fight. You see the older generations went through a way more violent fight. We fight and we see things happen, and it's horrific because we see it on social media, we see it on the news, and we get overloaded. These things happen on the regular back in the day. As you see, like this story would not have been made a big of a story as it was if it wasn't for all the people fighting for it. So you can only think about how many people went through the same thing and never got the chance to be heard. So I think that it's very important that we do focus on the ones that we do have an example of, because the kids don't know that you are blessed, that you got a chance to be able to have an outlet. If Martin Luther King had a Twitter, his activism would have been 100 times more. We got a voice that can be heard, and there's a lot of ways to do it. So it's very important to see what people have gone through and to see how we can take notes from that and try to apply that nowadays.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mulrain.